My name is Ted Meyerson. I'm a volunteer with AARP Maryland. I'm speaking today with Tracey Rezvani. Tracey is the administrator of the Howard County Office of Consumer Protection. Tracey, what is the Howard County Office of Consumer Protection and what does it do?
Sure. So the Office of Consumer Protection is a county-led agency that um, executes and applies the county's consumer protection statutes and the landlord-tenant statutes. So you can think of us as a miniature federal trade commission. And most of the work that we do is over complaints. So we take complaints as long as one of the parties is in Howard County, we have jurisdiction over them. And since we are local, we do have, as I say, boots on the ground. So we need to go and meet with the merchant to have the conversation that, maybe you can't or are not comfortable to do. That's something we can definitely do. If in the time that we're dealing with the complaint, we realize that the law was broken, we can work on compliance. And if that doesn't work, then we do have law enforcement authority. So we do bring citations and can deal with settlement agreements and things like that.
How long has the office been in existence?
The law that created us will make it 50 years in June of this year. And the office was actually fully opened as an office in next year will be the 50th anniversary. So 1976 will be 50 that the office was actually open. The law that passed was 50 years ago in June this year.
How many people, staff people do you have in that office?
Including us, including me, there's 5 of us total. So I always say that we're small but mighty.
What types of questions do you typically get?
About half of our questions and our complaints are landlord tenant, and the other half runs the gamut: auto repair, buying a car, home improvement, dealing with repair folks, retail. I always say that if you spent money and the outcome isn't what you were expecting, the transaction didn't go right, with some exceptions, you can come to our office and we can help or try to help.
Do you get a lot of scams and fraud?
We get a lot of calls, and we have a report fraud link. So we take those in by phone. People sometimes will, walk in and do in person with us. We get email questions all the time. And so we do get a lot of calls about it. And a lot of times it's heartbreaking because the amount of money that's lost could be minor of like $50 or major like $800,000. And so a few years ago, we created the Howard County Scam Squad to try and get ahead of the waves that come sweeping across the country in one way or the other, and to try to get in front of it as much as we can and get some messaging out.
Well, I want to hear about the scam squad, but tell me first, what are you doing specifically to try to educate people or to try to forestall scams and fraud?
Well, I think you said it. I think the best defense is education. If you know what to look for, if you know what scams are coming around, then you're less likely to fall in line with their story or their scenario that they're trying to paint. So criminals at this point are very, very good at what they do. They are professional criminals. They are trained. A lot of these are international syndicates, so they run like a conglomerate. They have supervisors, they have training, they have scripting, they've got support personnel. We are all amateurs, and we are fighting against folks that literally will do this 24 hours a day. And so knowing how a transaction that could seem like it's a legitimate transaction, hiding red flags that it's actually a financial fraud and crime, is the first form of defense that we can bring as an agency.
How do you reach out to the public?
We do a lot of in-person programming depending on who invites us. We do a lot of webinars. Our webinars are recorded and available on our YouTube channel. And if you go to our homepage, you can see the links to YouTube. We post on social media, so Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter. So we have education in many forms. I try to put scam alerts out weekly, sometimes more than once a week. And there's just so many different ways that folks can hear from us. So social media, webinars, in-person programming. We have a newsletter we send out once a month. By all means, sign up for the newsletter. And you don't have to live in the county to follow us on all of this information. The information is free, so it just, the more the merrier, and then share widely.
I was just going to say that the scams are national or worldwide, and we're talking about Howard County, but if you're giving out information, that should be useful across the United States so anybody can tune in and learn something.
Absolutely, and you're right. I mean, years ago, when we were getting inundated with the voicemails that were entirely in Chinese, we watched that wave slowly come from across the Pacific around to the West Coast and just slowly wave on in. So we were prepared for that. We knew it was coming. And that's what we try to get the messaging out before the wave hits us for those new scams. But then there's those scams that are perennial. They are always the same, like the jury duty scam and the citation scams. Those are like the old Nigerian prince scam. It's only a while, once we start recognizing that that's essentially the Nigerian prince scam all over again, then they'll morph it into something else. These criminals, they watch the news, they pivot to whatever is making headlines, like this.
I have to say that my grandson keeps calling me and telling me he's in trouble. That scam has been around for a long time.
Yes, the grandparent scam is another one of those perennial favorites of the criminal syndicates. And again, it's one of the reasons the Scam Squad was created. And we have a whole webpage on that. Not only does it have tips on how to get into transactions safely, but then these are all about the perennial favorites, if you will, of the scams that are out there. And while the facts may change, while the situation may seem like it's changed, the scam is the scam is the scam. Ultimately, the goal is to get money and to get information, and they will do it in any way they can. So that was our goal in creating the Scam Squad, was to hear from front-facing agencies and nonprofits. What are your constituents hearing? What are they dealing with? And then we provided some basic spot the scam training, which, many thanks to the Federal Trade Commission, the Better Business Bureau of Greater Maryland, as well as the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, who helped us put that together. Because as I mentioned, scams look and feel like real transactions. So how to spot the scam becomes crucial. And that way, we know what they're hearing so that we can provide resources through law enforcement as to where to go, which is the best law enforcement agency for a particular situation, because the police may not be the optimal place to file your report. And we also then are giving them information as, hey, this wave is coming, get the message out. So it's a two-way street of conversation.
Wow, that sounds really effective. I hope it is. Can you give us an example of how that's worked?
I think the best example I can give is that we heard from a nonprofit that was working in Korean American Senior Center. about how a lot of those members were experiencing their SNAP benefits getting drained when they were shopping at a particular grocer. They didn't know where to go. The language was an impediment. So we immediately pulled in the Howard County Police, who made available a Korean-speaking police officer to take all the reports. They were then able to go to those grocers, find the skimming devices, make the arrests. And with those arrests, they were then now invited to join a national task force that was dealing with these skimming scams that were going across the country. And we stayed in touch with those constituents when legislation changed to provide those refunds. We were able to help them not only get new cards and get a new system set up for them to be safer and how to continuously reset their PINs. But when those refunds became an option, we were able to then get back in touch and say, contact this organization or this agency to try to get that money back. And then we work with other nonprofit partners that were part of the scam squad to make sure they had food assistance if they needed it or any other type of assistance. So it became a very local but global effort to fight against this particular fraud here in the county.
Well, where can a consumer like me learn about common scams and financial frauds?
Like I said, I think if you go to the Scam Squad webpage, we have a lot of information there. Following us on social media, I usually put the latest waves on social media. I put into our newsletters what we're expecting to come that's global. Our latest newsletter, for example, talked about home improvement scams, paving scams. Once the weather turns nice, door-to-door sales come in. A lot of legitimate businesses are coming to your door, but so are the criminals. They're hiding amongst these legitimate businesses. So knowing what to look for becomes key.
So door-to-doors become prevalent because the weather turns?
As soon as the weather turns, the door-to-door sales are now going door-to-door. It's now not 20 degrees. And usually starting about late March to early April, that's when you're going to get a lot of folks that are driving around, legitimate businesses offering windows, doors, siding, home improvement. They should have our ID. So our office issues peddler and solicitor identification, and they should have our ID. Home improvement should also have a license, a salesperson's license by the Maryland Home Improvement Commission. And they should also have a license to actually do the work from the Maryland Home Improvement Commission. So home improvement is huge during the spring and summer into early fall. And so we do put out the alert. Our neighboring county has been inundated with paving scams, folks going door to door selling extra supply they had left over. And so they're grappling with this traveling scam that has now reached our area. So the police department next door has been doing a lot of messaging. So we expect that to eventually jump the border and come to Howard County.
And what scam is that? I'm sorry, I missed that.
The paving scam. So they come
Paving.
door to door,
Okay.
yes, and they say they have extra supplies and they can do paving. Now, do they do a good job? Who knows? It looks like they're not because it's become an epidemic. A lot of times they're just putting some sort of film over it, which just causes a nightmare. And ultimately, none of this is bonded, it's not licensed, there's no guarantee fund behind it. And so folks are just ending up not only giving money to these criminals, but they're now having to pay real contractors to come and fix the problem that was created.
Okay, so I can learn from your YouTube page, and I would go to YouTube and put in Howard County Consumer Protection.
Our playlist is actually under the Howard County government's YouTube channel, but if you go to our homepage, I have a link to it right in the top right corner, as well as a link to our social media pages. So it's very easy. Just click and go.
All right. I got distracted because the phone started ringing. Excuse me, but my wife picked it up, and I'm glad for that. So let's go on. So,
And I will say that if you are on social media, if you do a search for HOCO consumer, you will find our social media. So that's another easy way to find us.
okay, and the Scam Squad has a web page too.
Correct. It's if you go to our website, which is howardcountymd.gov/consumer, the link to the Scam Squad page is in the center off to the right side.
All that sounds great. Do you have any last piece of advice for me, or for us, or for everybody?
Yeah, for everyone, when dealing with a scenario, know that when you get a call or an email out of the blue, the goal is for criminals to turn off your thinking and to turn on your emotions, because they can control the situation a lot better when emotions are guiding. Talk to a trusted family member or a trusted friend and say, I got a call, will the FBI really hold on to all of my life savings and golds? Or do you think that this situation is real? What should I do if my grandson is in jail in some foreign country? Talk to someone you trust. And then when in doubt, give us a call, right? You can call our office. Montgomery County has an Office of Consumer Protection. If folks are listening outside of those two counties, the Maryland Attorney General's office has a Consumer Protection Division. AARP has a Fraud Watch. So you have a lot of third-party resources that you can go to and say, is this real, right? And just know that with artificial intelligence, the person you're hearing may not actually sound like that. The person you're seeing on video may not actually look like that. And just trust that spidey sense. There's always that voice in the back of your head that says, does this sound right? And if that words come into your mind, trust that feeling, because if it doesn't sound right to your spidey senses, there's something wrong here.
Tracey, you've given us a lot of information. I've learned a lot from you. I'm going to go on YouTube and watch some of these things and see if I can learn some more. And I invite everybody else to do that too. So once again, I'll say thank you, and
Welcome.
we'll see you next time.
Thanks again.